On Christmas Eve, my family dumped my 9-year-old niece at an empty bus stop and drove off for a luxury Christmas vacation without her. "You always ruin Christmas," they told her. I didn't hesitate. I did this. 6 months later, they got a letter and their lives started to unravel. If you'd asked me an hour earlier what I was doing on Christmas Eve, I would have said something boring and normal. Matching pajamas, a cookie sheet cooling on the counter, my husband Michael pretending he wasn't excited about the annual tradition of eating dinner straight off paper plates because it's Christmas and I'm not doing dishes. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't pick up. Unknown numbers are either scams or people trying to talk to you about your car's extended warranty. I don't even have a car worth extending. I answered anyway, because Christmas Eve makes you stupidly optimistic, like maybe this time the universe is calling to say, "Surprise, you're getting a break." "Hello?" There was a hitch of breath on the other end, a small sound, like someone trying not to cry and failing at it. "Aunt Anna?" My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I'd swallowed the floor. "Sophie?" I said, already standing, already walking toward the living room window like I could see her through it. "Sophie, honey, where are you?" She was my niece, 9 years old. The kid who always hugged too hard and said sorry when you handed her a glass of water, like existing was something she owed you for. She sniffed. I'm at a bus stop." "A bus stop?" My voice came out too loud. Michael looked up from the couch, remote frozen in his hand. "What bus stop?" "I don't know. It's dark. There's a sign. I'm trying to read it." I forced my breath to work. "Okay, slow down. Tell me what happened." There was a pause, and then the words came out in a rush, like if she didn't say them fast enough, they'd disappear. "Mom dropped me here." My brain tried to reject that sentence, like a computer refusing a corrupt file. "Kayla dropped you where?" I said. Kayla, my younger sister, was the kind of person who could turn any situation into a performance. Tears on cue. Smiles like a weapon. Her favorite role was the misunderstood mom who deserves more help. "At the bus stop," Sophie whispered, like I was the one being slow. "They said I have to take the bus home." "Who's they?" "All of them," she said, and her voice cracked. "Mom, Brendan, Grandma and Grandpa, Harper and Liam." My parents. Kayla's husband, Brendan, Sophie's stepdad, and Kayla's 2 younger kids, Harper and Liam, who got treated like the second coming of baby Jesus, even when they were pulling ornaments off the tree and licking them. "All of them were in the car," Sophie said. They were laughing." The room got too quiet around me, like the air had been sucked out and replaced with static. "Sophie," I said carefully, "why are you at a bus stop?" She took a shaky breath. "They said I always ruin Christmas." My hand tightened around my phone. "What?" "They said I always ruin Christmas for everyone," she repeated, and the way she said it, like she was trying to accept it as fact, made something hot and sharp rise up behind my ribs. "Mom said I ruined it, and they told me to take the bus home and spend Christmas alone." I blinked hard. "Alone?" "There's nobody home," she said. "They said I can use my key." I could hear the wind on the line, the hollow emptiness of wherever she was. My mind made pictures it had no business making. Dark road, empty bench, a bus stop light buzzing like something out of a horror movie. "How are you calling me?" I asked, because it didn't make sense. Sophie didn't have a phone. Kayla claimed she didn't believe in kids being glued to screens, which was hilarious since Kayla was surgically attached to hers. "A lady let me use hers," Sophie whispered. I remembered your number." That hit me like a punch. My number. From babysitting days. From all those times I'd tried to be the extra adult in Sophie's life because the one assigned to her by biology kept treating her like an inconvenient receipt. Okay, I said. Stay with her. Stay right there. Do you see a store? A building? Anything? There's nothing, she said. Just a road, and a sign, and a bench. Read me the sign. She sniffed and mumbled, then tried again. It says Pine something, Pine Ridge, and Route 16. I pulled up maps with shaking fingers. My eyes flicked wildly across the screen. Pine Ridge, Route 16. My phone offered me 3 Pine Ridges, and none of them were places you wanted a 9-year-old waiting alone. Sophie, I said, trying to keep my voice from snapping in half. I'm coming to get you. No, she blurted. Please don't call Mom. I started, but she cut me off, fear spilling out. She'll be mad. She'll be really mad. She told me not to. She told me to go home and... Her voice got small again. She said I ruin everything. I closed my eyes. There it was, the thing that had been hovering at the edge of my awareness for years. Not a bruise, not a dramatic headline, just a kid who believed she was the reason holidays went bad. Listen to me, I said, and I didn't care that Michael was watching, that my voice had gone low and dangerous. You didn't ruin anything. Do you hear me? There was a pause. Okay, Sophie whispered, but it sounded like she didn't believe me. Put the lady on, I said gently. Can I talk to her? A muffled movement. A new voice. Adult. Female. Wary. Hello? Hi, I said, forcing myself into calm. My name is Anna. I'm Sophie's aunt. Thank you for letting her use your phone. Where exactly are you? The woman hesitated. We're at the stop near Pine Ridge. There's no one out here. I was driving by and saw her sitting there crying. I didn't want to leave her. My throat tightened. You did the right thing. Can you stay with her for a few more minutes? I'm coming right now. I can, she said, voice firm now. I'm not leaving her. Thank you, I breathed. Thank you so much. I took the phone back to Sophie. I'm on my way, I told her. Stay with her. I'll be there as fast as I can. Aunt Anna? Yeah, honey. Am I bad? She whispered. I swallowed hard. No, I said. You're not. And then I hung up, because if I stayed on the line any longer, I was going to say something that would make Michael snatch my keys out of my hand and ground me like a teenager. Michael was already standing. Where is she? Bus stop, I said, grabbing my coat. Middle of nowhere. Kayla left her. Michael's face did something complicated and ugly. He didn't ask if I was sure. He didn't say maybe there's a misunderstanding. He didn't offer a calm, reasonable alternative like, let's wait and see. He just said, I'm coming. I'm driving, I snapped automatically. Fine, he said. Then I'm navigating, and I'm bringing a blanket. He moved fast. Not frantic, not flailing, just purposeful. Like the moment he understood a child was alone, something in him clicked into place. We were out the door in under 2 minutes. Cookies forgotten. Christmas music still playing in the living room like a cruel joke. In the car, my hands were tight on the steering wheel, knuckles pale. Halfway there, my phone buzzed. Kayla. I stared at it like it was a live grenade. Sophie had begged me not to call her, and I hadn't. But Kayla calling me on Christmas Eve wasn't normal unless she wanted something. I answered on speaker because if I held the phone, my hands might shake. Anna! Kayla's voice was bright. too bright. "Merry Christmas Eve! What are you doing?" I tasted blood where I'd bitten the inside of my cheek. "Driving," I said. "How's your trip?" A little laugh. "Oh, wow, it's amazing. The kids are so excited. How's Sophie?" I asked, like I was asking about the weather, like I wasn't seconds away from tearing my own hair out. A pause, just long enough. Kayla sighed theatrically. "Ugh, don't even. She was a nightmare." My stomach twisted. Michael's gaze snapped to me, sharp. "What do you mean?" I said. "She was pouting and whining and acting like everything is about her," Kayla said, as if she was describing a grown adult at a work party. "She ruined the whole vibe." There it was again. Ruined. Like Sophie was a spilled drink you couldn't scrub out. "So," Kayla continued breezily, "we sent her home." I blinked. "You sent her home?" "Yeah," she said, as if I was being dramatic. "She's 9. She has a key. There's food in the fridge. She can manage. It's not like we abandoned her in the woods." My grip on the wheel tightened so hard my fingers hurt. "What bus did she take?" I asked, still playing calm, because Sophie was right. Kayla would be furious if she knew. "Whatever one goes back," Kayla said. "There's a direct bus. It's fine." "And Mom and Dad were okay with that?" I asked. Kayla laughed like I'd told a joke. "Mom said it was about time someone taught her consequences. Dad didn't want to deal with the drama. Brendan's relieved. And honestly, Harper and Liam are having a way better time without her sucking all the attention." I tasted something metallic. Rage. Disbelief. The kind of anger that's so clean it feels cold. "Kayla," I said, voice steady by sheer force, "you sent a 9-year-old home alone on Christmas Eve." "She wasn't home alone," Kayla snapped suddenly, irritation slipping through. "She was on a bus. Don't ruin this for us, Anna. It's Christmas." I stared at the road. "Right," I said quietly. "Merry Christmas." Then I hung up. Michael didn't speak for a full minute. He just stared forward like he was memorizing the shape of my sister's voice so he could hate her properly later. Finally, he said, "She thinks Sophie is already home." "I know," I whispered. We drove faster. When we finally pulled into the empty stretch of road, my headlights swept over a bench, a sign, and a small bundled shape sitting stiffly under a streetlight that flickered like it was trying to die. "Sophie." My chest caved in. I slammed the car into park and got out before the door was fully open. Sophie looked up, and for a second her face was blank, like she didn't trust what she was seeing. Then she stood, shaky, and ran. She hit me like a little cannonball, arms tight around my waist, her whole body trembling. "I knew you'd come," she whispered into my coat, and it broke something in me so cleanly I almost couldn't breathe. "I've got you," I said, voice rough. "I've got you." Behind her, the woman who'd lent the phone stood with her arms crossed, jaw tight like she'd been ready to fight anyone who showed up and didn't have good intentions. "Thank you," I told her, eyes stinging. She nodded once. "Don't thank me. Just don't leave her there again." "I won't," I said, and for the first time that night, I meant it like a vow. In the car, Sophie sat wrapped in the blanket Michael had brought. She stared at her hands like they didn't belong to her. "You're spending Christmas with us," I said, keeping my voice light, like this was the plan all along. "Okay?" Sophie's eyes flicked up. "But Mom said—" "I don't care what she said," I cut in, immediately softening when Sophie flinched. "Sorry, you're with us tonight." The rest of the drive was quiet. Sophie's breathing gradually slowed. Her shoulders unclenched a fraction. When we got home, the house smelled like sugar and cinnamon and the life we were supposed to be having tonight. We got Sophie warm, We got her fed. We got her settled on the couch with a blanket and a mug of cocoa she held with both hands like it was keeping her upright. And then, in the soft quiet of our living room, she said it again. They said I ruined Christmas. I sat beside her and stared at the twinkling lights on our tree. Somewhere else, my sister was sipping something expensive and laughing. And Sophie was sitting on my couch, trembling like she'd been dropped into a world that didn't want her. I watched her eyelids droop. I watched her fight sleep like it was dangerous. I tucked the blanket higher around her shoulders, and I made a decision so sharp it felt like a click. They didn't know it yet, but Christmas Eve wasn't the end of this. It was the beginning. Favoritism doesn't always look like a villain twirling a mustache and cackling over a cauldron of child neglect. Sometimes it looks like a family photo where you're always the one told to move to the side so the little ones can be in the middle. Sometimes it's a birthday cake with candles you blow out alone because your sister is too tired, but somehow has enough energy to open her presents first. Sometimes it's being 13 and standing in the hallway in socks while your parents take your younger sister out for ice cream because it's more for younger kids. Kayla was 3 years younger than me, and she learned early that the world bent for her if she made the right face. My parents weren't monsters. They didn't hit me. They didn't lock me in a closet. They did something worse in a quieter way. They made me feel like I was optional. Kayla was the favorite, not in a subtle way either, in a way that felt like a running joke everyone understood except me. I tried for years to earn what she got for free. Good grades, perfect chores, being easy, being grateful, being invisible. It didn't matter. Eventually, I stopped trying. Not because it didn't hurt, but because hope is expensive, and I was tired of paying for it. When we were older, I thought that would be the end of it. Like favoritism was a childhood disease you grew out of. Then Kayla got pregnant. She was barely out of high school, still living at home. I was in university and living there too, because tuition had a way of eating every dollar you thought you had. Kayla didn't want the baby. She said it openly, like it was the weather. By the time she realized she couldn't undo it, resentment had already set up camp behind her eyes. Sophie arrived, small and pink and demanding, like babies are. Kayla held her for pictures, and then handed her off like a purse she didn't want to carry. My parents were still working. Kayla was still Kayla. So the baby ended up with me. At first it was, "Can you watch her for an hour? I just need a nap." Then it was, "Can you take her? I have plans." Then it was, "You're good with her. She likes you." I was the one who warmed bottles, the one who paced the living room at 2 a.m., the one who learned Sophie's cries like a language. I told myself it was temporary, that Kayla would mature, that motherhood would click. It didn't. Even when I moved out, job, tiny apartment, my own dishes to not wash, Kayla's expectations followed me like a shadow. "Can you take her after work? Can you keep her on Saturday? Brendan and I need a date night." Brendan came later. A new man, a new last name, and a fresh reason for Kayla to pretend everything was fine. When she married Brendan, I really believed things would get better. Marriage is supposed to make people more responsible, right? I was adorable. Kayla had Harper, then Liam, 2 little blonde hurricanes who could smear peanut butter on a wall and get praised for being so creative. Sophie, Kayla's first, became inconvenient. Not abused in a way that left bruises. Neglected in a way that left empty spaces. It showed up in small things I couldn't unsee, like Sophie sitting at the kitchen table while Kayla braided Harper's hair with glittery bows, like Liam getting a whole birthday party theme and Sophie getting told, "We did cake at Grandma's, remember?" Even though Sophie had been at my house that day, like Kayla and Brendan loading Harper and Liam into the car for a family outing and saying, "This is more for younger kids." while Sophie stood by the door, shoes already on. "You can stay with Aunt Anna," Kayla would say, like she was doing Sophie a favor, and Sophie would come to me without complaint, like she'd already learned not to ask why. Brendan liked to act like he deserved a medal for marrying someone who already had a child. He'd say things like, "I stepped up," and "not every man would do this," as if Sophie was a stray dog he'd adopted for good karma, and Kayla ate it up. I never heard Brendan call Sophie my daughter. Not once. I heard him call her Kayla's kid plenty. Sophie, meanwhile, called me for everything. For scraped knees, for nightmares, for spelling homework, for the kind of comfort you seek from the adult you trust. I didn't tell her bad things about her mom. I didn't have to. Kids aren't stupid. They know who shows up. 6 months before Christmas Eve, everything shifted. It was a family dinner, one of those sticky sweet nights where everyone pretends they're fine because there's pie and witnesses. Some relatives were visiting, the kind Kayla performed for. Sophie was quiet all evening. Not peaceful quiet. Held in quiet. Kayla was in full show-off mode, talking about the kids and how blessed she was, like motherhood was a hobby she'd mastered. Someone made a comment, something harmless like, "You're such a great mom." Kayla beamed, and Sophie, small voice, big truth, said from her seat, clear enough for everyone to hear, "I wish Aunt Anna was my mom." The table went dead. Kayla's smile froze in place. Brendan's face tightened. My mom's fork paused midair like it forgot what it was doing. Kayla let out a laugh that was way too loud. "Sophie, don't be silly." Sophie didn't laugh. She just looked down at her hands and said, even quieter, "I want to live with her." Kayla's glass hit the table with a sharp click. Later, after the relatives left and Sophie had been hustled out of the room, Kayla cornered me in the kitchen. "What did you tell her?" she hissed. "Nothing," I said, because it was the truth. "Kayla, she said that because you're in her head," Kayla snapped, cheeks hot with humiliation. "You've been filling her with lies." "I haven't." "You're not seeing her anymore," she said, that brittle, responsible mother tone sliding into place. "No more babysitting, no more special time, no more whatever this is." I stared at her. "Kayla, she loves me." Kayla's mouth twisted. "She embarrassed me in front of everyone." There it was. Not concern for Sophie, not heartbreak, embarrassment. After that, I saw Sophie only at family gatherings, holiday dinners, birthdays, anything Kayla couldn't avoid without people asking questions. Sophie would still run to me, arms flung wide, desperate like she was trying to store me up for later. Kayla hated it. I could see it in the way her jaw tensed, in how she'd call Sophie over with a sharp, "Sophie, come here!" And because I wasn't allowed to babysit anymore, the solution Kayla landed on was, predictably, convenient for Kayla. She started leaving Sophie home alone. "She's 9, Kayla would say, like that was a magic shield against being a bad parent. "She's fine. She has food. She can entertain herself." Meanwhile, Kayla and Brendan would take Harper and Liam out for kid stuff. Museums, holiday light shows, gingerbread houses at fancy places where you paid $12 for hot chocolate. Sophie stayed home, left out of her own family, watching the clock, waiting for footsteps that didn't come. I saw it happening. I hated it, and I didn't know what to do that wouldn't make it worse. There were no bruises, no broken bones, no obvious headline, just a child being quietly taught she didn't belong. So I waited, hoped, told myself, surely Kayla will grow up. Surely Mom and Dad will notice. Surely someone will stop this. Christmas Eve proved how wrong I was, because leaving a 9-year-old home alone was one kind of abandonment. Dumping her at an empty bus stop in the middle of nowhere? That was something else. And the thing about patterns is, When people keep getting away with them, they escalate. Kayla thought I'd step aside like I always had. She had no idea what I was about to do. Sophie fell asleep on our couch with her fists clenched in the blanket. Michael sat across from her, quietly furious. I stood in the kitchen with my phone in my hand, replaying Sophie's voice. I always ruin Christmas. And Kayla's... It's not like we abandoned her in the woods. When Sophie woke up, she looked around like she didn't trust the room. Then she saw me, and her shoulders dropped. "Aunt Anna?" "I'm here," I said. She swallowed. Can I live here?" I opened my mouth, and nothing came out. Because "I want you to" isn't a legal plan. Sophie's eyes filled. "I don't want to go back," she said quickly, like she was racing against someone taking the words away. "Ever." I stepped into the kitchen and lowered my voice. "I'm not sending her back." Michael didn't argue. He just said, "Tell me what you need." I swallowed. "A plan." I picked up my phone and stared at the name I hadn't called in months. Ms. Reed. Not my attorney, technically. Not yet. A lawyer friend I trusted, the kind of person who didn't sugarcoat reality and didn't panic when other people panicked. It rang twice. "Anna?" Ms. Reed answered, voice brisk. "Is everything okay?" "No," I said. "I need 10 minutes of your brain on Christmas Eve." A pause. Then, "Okay, talk." So I did. I told her about the call, the bus stop, the line Kayla used, the fact that Sophie didn't have a phone, the fact she was supposed to take a bus home alone. Ms. Reed didn't gasp. She didn't say, "Are you sure?" like I was making it up for attention. She said, "Do you know if buses were even running?" I froze. Check," she said. "Right now. Screenshot it." So I did. I pulled up the transit page for the route Sophie had described, the one Kayla had claimed was direct. And there it was, in cheerful holiday font. No service. Christmas Eve. Evening. My stomach turned over. There hadn't been a bus. Not at that time. Not out there. They hadn't sent her home. They had left her. I heard myself inhale sharply, like the air was suddenly colder. Ms. Reed's voice came through the phone. "Anna?" "No buses," I said, voice flat. "There were no buses." "Okay," Ms. Reed said, and her tone shifted, still calm but steel underneath. "That's important. Now listen. Document everything. And you need to report this. Police and CPS." My heart pounded. "Tonight?" "Tonight," she confirmed. "And Anna, do not get pulled into a family fight. Keep your communication clean. Stick to facts. Let the system do its job." I stared at Sophie again. She was rubbing her eyes, small and exhausted. "Okay," I whispered. After that, we moved fast. Not dramatic, not screaming, just decisive. I went to the police station first because it was open, and because my hands needed to do something real. I gave a statement to an officer whose name I didn't catch because I was too busy trying not to explode. I told the truth. All of it. The phone call. The location. The ruined Christmas line. The no bus confirmation. Then I called CPS and made the report, answering questions that made my stomach twist because saying the words out loud made them more real. Yes, the child had been left alone. Yes, the guardians had left town. Yes, the child was safe with me now. Yes, I could keep her safe. I hung up and felt like I'd stepped off a cliff. Sophie slept in our guest room that night. Michael put a nightlight in there without a word. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment I'd ever dismissed as not my place. For the next 4 days, I kept waiting for the call. Not the angry one, not the performative one, the panicked one. The one that starts with, "Where is she?" The one a normal parent makes the second they realize their kid isn't where they left her. It never came. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, nothing. Day 3, still nothing. Sophie was in my house, eating, showering, whispering apologies when she didn't need to, while her own family enjoyed their vacation like they hadn't left a 9-year-old behind. On day 4, my phone rang. Kayla. I let it go to voicemail. Her message came through sharp and rattled, the holiday cheer gone like someone had flipped a switch. Anna, call me. Sophie isn't here. She's not at the house. Do you know where she is? Not, is she okay? Not, did something happen? Just, where is she? Like Sophie was a missing purse. I called Ms. Reed. She told me, do not answer her directly. Let CPS handle this. Not long after, Ms. Levis, the CPS worker assigned, called and confirmed what I already felt in my bones. A case was open. Placement was being discussed. Interviews were coming. And yes, Kayla would be contacted. Not by me. By the consequences she'd tried to dodge. For a couple of days after that, Kayla didn't suddenly turn into a worried mother. She turned into what she always was when she felt cornered. Loud. When she finally learned Sophie was safe with a relative, the switch flipped. It wasn't panic. It was outrage. Accusations. Dramatic language. The kind of anger that's less about Sophie and more about control. Messages started coming in, one at a time, spaced out just enough to feel deliberate. What did you do? You had no right. You're trying to ruin my life. You're turning my daughter against me. I didn't answer. Then there was silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind where you can almost hear someone recalculating. A few days later, Kayla's tone changed again. Not softer, just colder. A message came through, shorter and sharper. Fine. Keep her. She wanted you anyway. And then another, because she couldn't resist twisting the knife. Don't come crying to me when you can't handle her. She ruins everything. I stared at my phone until the screen dimmed. Ms. Levis scheduled calls and meetings. Kayla missed one. Brendan missed another. My parents didn't respond to a request for an interview until days later. No one sounded like people desperate to get Sophie back. They sounded like people angry their mess had been seen and relieved someone else was carrying it. By the time Ms. Reed said the words temporary placement, something inside me unclenched. Sophie was still here. Legally here. Ms. Reed's voice stayed calm when she said, if you want this to be permanent, we start that process. You'll need to be ready. I looked at Sophie that night, curled on our couch, focused on a cartoon like it was teaching her a language called safe. I'm ready, I whispered. I'd been raising her in all the ways that counted for years. I loved her like she was mine, and I wasn't going to keep living on borrowed time. Kayla still thought this was a tantrum I'd get over. She had no idea what was coming, because 6 months later, they would get a letter, and overnight, the people who couldn't wait to be rid of Sophie would become desperate to take her back. 6 months later, things were almost quiet. Not healed quiet. Not we're a family again quiet. More like the kind of quiet you get when someone stops fighting because they've decided they don't care enough to keep swinging. Kayla missed calls. Brendan didn't show up to half the meetings. My parents stayed conveniently vague. Paperwork moved forward without drama, which, if you've met my family, felt suspiciously close to a miracle. I started letting myself think it. Soon, she'll be mine on paper too. Then Ms. Reed called me and said, Anna, come to my office, today. No greeting, no joke. just that tone lawyers use when they don't want you to panic until you're sitting down. By the time I got there, my stomach had already decided we were in trouble. Ms. Reed didn't waste time. She shut the door, handed me a copy of a letter, and said, "Your sister and your parents received this." I looked down. Estate attorney letterhead, formal wording. The kind of envelope that doesn't show up unless someone died or something expensive changed hands. Ms. Reed tapped one paragraph with her pen. "Read that." I read it once, then again, because my brain didn't want the words to mean what they meant. A trust, a minor child, Sophie's name, and a number so large it made my mouth go dry. For a second, the normal reaction tried to kick in. That's incredible. That's life-changing. But it didn't feel incredible. It felt like someone had just tossed a lit match into the middle of everything I'd fought to stabilize. Ms. Reed watched my face. "Yes," she said quietly. "It's real." I didn't even hear my own voice when I asked, "They know?" "They were notified," she said. "Which means—" She paused, just long enough for the dread to fully bloom. This may be the moment they suddenly decide they want Sophie back. And that's when I understood why the last few months had been so easy. They weren't done. They were just waiting for a reason. The next afternoon, Ms. Reed called. No greeting, no warm-up. "They retained counsel," she said. My throat went dry. "Kayla?" "Kayla. And Brendan." "What are they asking for?" I said, even though I already knew. Ms. Reed exhaled. "Immediate reunification. They're claiming you manipulated Sophie. They want her returned." I let out a laugh that wasn't humor so much as disbelief escaping my body. "Returned," I echoed. "Like a package." "Yes," Ms. Reed said. "Like that." 2 days later, a letter arrived at my house. Clean letterhead, clean language, dirty intentions. I read it once, then again. Then I set it down very carefully, like paper could bite. Sophie didn't need to see the letter to know something shifted. She looked up from the kitchen table, saw my face, and went still. "Are they coming?" she whispered. I crouched beside her chair. "You're safe," I said. "Okay," she nodded like she wanted to believe me, like belief was something she had to practice. That night, Kayla finally texted me. Not, "How is Sophie?" Not, "I'm sorry." A performance. "You stole my daughter. You poisoned her against me. I want her home." I didn't reply. If I replied, I'd say what I really thought, and Ms. Reed would have to bill me for arson. The next day, another message. "We'll see you in court." And then my mom left one voicemail, and it sounded like she'd rehearsed it. "Anna, this has gone too far. Sophie belongs with her family." I listened to it twice, waiting for the part where my mother remembered Sophie was a child. It didn't come. Ms. Reed moved like a machine after that. She printed everything. Screenshots, reports, notes, missed meetings. She stacked Kayla's words in neat rows where no one could pretend they were misunderstandings. "Fine. Keep her. She wanted you anyway. Don't come crying when you can't handle her. She ruins everything." Ms. Reed tapped the papers. "This is why I told you to keep receipts." My hands were cold. "What if the judge believes her?" Ms. Reed didn't blink. "Kayla wrote her motive down. She just didn't realize she was doing it." On the day we went in, Sophie stayed home. I didn't want her sitting in a room where adults argued about her like she was property. She'd had enough of that for a lifetime. Before I left, she grabbed my sleeve. "Do I have to go back?" she asked, so quiet it barely counted as a voice. I crouched and looked her in the eyes. "No," I said. "Not if I can stop it." That was the whole point. The hearing wasn't a movie. No speeches, no gasps. Just Kayla in her best, concerned mother costume. Brendan acting like he'd always cared. My parents looking wounded, and Ms. Reed, calm and relentless, letting Kayla's own messages do the damage. Kayla tried to paint me as obsessive. Ms. Reed slid forward the screenshot where Kayla told me to keep Sophie. Kayla tried to claim she'd always been involved. Ms. Reed pointed to the no-shows, the missed calls, the 4-day silence where nobody even noticed Sophie was gone. Kayla's face tightened when she realized the story wasn't, "My sister stole my child." It was, "I didn't want her until she became valuable." The decision came later, on paper. An envelope, a court order, dry words that changed everything anyway. Ms. Reed called me first. "Anna," she said, voice softer than usual. "It's done." When I got home, Sophie was in the hallway watching my face like it was the only answer that mattered. I didn't make her wait. I knelt down and nodded. Her breath hitched. She didn't smile. Not right away, like she didn't trust happiness to stay. Then she threw her arms around my neck and sobbed like her body had been holding its breath for 9 years. "I'm staying," she choked. "You're staying," I said into her hair. "You're home." And all I could think was, so this is what it looks like when people try to buy back what they threw away. Too late. A year later, the house is still the same on the outside. Inside, it isn't. Sophie has her own room now, hers, not for now. The adoption is final. The court order is final. And no, Kayla doesn't get visitation. Brendan doesn't either. Neither do my parents. Sophie made her position clear, repeatedly, and for once, the adults in charge listened. Then the trust paperwork landed. From the estate of Sophie's biological father's mother, a woman Sophie had never even met. Not a rumor. Not a nice little inheritance. $1,100,000. It's locked in a trust for Sophie, and I'm the trustee. So no, we didn't blow it on a new car or a bigger house. It goes where it's supposed to go. Therapy, school, stability, medical care. Everything Sophie should have had without needing a court order to get it. As for Kayla, I cut them off completely. Blocked numbers, filtered emails. No contact. I heard through relatives that the story got out and it got ugly for them. Turns out abandoning a kid on Christmas Eve doesn't come with great social reviews. Sophie's safe. She's steady. She's finally living in a home where love isn't something you earn by being small and silent. So tell me, did I go too far? Or not far enough? Leave a comment. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe.